Good morning, good afternoon, good evening across the country, around the world. Welcome back to the Kerbal Space Program. We're going to start off launching right away with a shuttle mission here. It's got a few pilots on board, but the crew cabin behind that is totally empty. We're going to go up to the space station Arcadia and collect everyone else up there. And here we go into time lapse. There we go, nice and quick. Yeah, so we're back. We're back with Kerbal Space Program, and we're eventually going to get to Eve. But first, we're going to go to Duna. If you saw my channel update, I talked a little bit about frustrations with Eve, and there have been lots of those. I tried a few things in my experiments, sandbox mode playthrough, I think. And wow, landing something on Eve is a pain. And then being able to take off again, I have to do some more experimentation. Possibly find some different engine mods. Like I saw Scott Manley do some stuff with Interstellar. There was a fusion reactor, so we might try that. Oh, and we jump ahead because the Space Station Arcadia stuff is so bad. It's so laggy. Even running the game at 4 times physics acceleration, the seconds barely tick by at 1 second to 1. It's really bad. So I cut out a lot of that because that took forever. But now we're going to blast back down, hit retrograde, and we're almost over the Space Center as it is. And we come in screaming down for a landing. Anyway, I need to experiment more with Eve, try to land there. If I were to send something there right now, I would not send a manned mission to the surface of Eve. I would do a lot like, what I'm going to do with Duna right now, and just send people to space, maybe land on Ike, and then at Eve, Gilly. But for now, I would not send a manned mission because I fear I will not be able to get them back. Yeah, this was a really steep re-entry. I just thought, what's the worst that can happen? I blow up, and I quick save and go back again. But we didn't burn up, but it was a funny landing. Yeah. Plus, I didn't realize till I hit the ground that I still had the thing set to orbital speed and not surface speed. So that kind of screwed me over at landing. But we got everybody home, and life goes on from there. Anyway, back to the plan. We're going to go to Duna. We're not going to land on Duna. We're going to land on Ike. I got an Ike lander in production. But we're going to go to Duna with a big, huge ship. We'll get to that at the end. We're going to go to Duna and do all the science there. I'm going to send probe landers down to the surface to hit hopefully 4 different biomes and collect all the science there. For this career mode, we want to get all the science we can, because that's how it works. We're almost scienced out, but if I do mod up... bad landing. But hey, we're down. If I do mod things up to Interstellar or something else, I would think I want some science in the bank, because Interstellar mods, I think some of those, the later stage ones, are really, really expensive. Now, as you see in the background, well, as you see on the screen, my background, I guess, whatever, we're starting to launch up all these satellite missions to Duna. There's, 4 satellite missions? 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, 4 satellite missions between 3 contracts and an Ike ScanSat. And one of those contracts to Duna is going to double as the ScanSat as well. So we got those. We'll take a quick look at those a little bit later. But this is another satellite going up into space. Just something that was easy to record, and then I can do this voiceover in post-production later. Where was I? I'm going to go to Duna with the Duna Armada, send all those satellites into orbit, collect all the science, and bring everybody back home. Like I said, I'm reluctant to go to Eve, even though that's the goal for this career playthrough, is to get to Eve and come back. Obviously, we're going to, even if we just go to space around Eve and come back, we've come back. I would like to land on Eve with something and then come back. But I tried that a couple weeks ago, and I got really frustrated. That's part of the reason I hadn't been playing much, was because getting something to land on Eve and not blow up first, especially something that would be large enough and powerful enough to lift off, it was really, I don't know, maybe I'm just not good enough with the game yet. But maybe there's other techniques and tricks and tips I can try, but I'm not there yet. So anyway, we're going to go to Duna first. That's coming up in about a year in game time. So we are launching all these satellites unmanned now, early, and we did return everybody else down to the Space Center with that space shuttle mission just a moment ago. So they're all going to, keep an eye on these satellites, but for the most part, they're going to relax, take a break, because they've all been up on the space station doing other things. And they're going to take a break for about a year, and then they'll launch for Duna. In the meantime, I have been playing Kerbal. I've put in about, between Eve experiments and other things, I've put in about 20 hours, but I've spent a good 8 to 10 hours just grinding away. Grinding, I think, is the term, when you're playing like an RPG and you just accept quest after quest after quest just to level up and acquire whatever. That's what I've been doing. I've launched a good 12 to 18 satellite missions just in the last week or two, just to grind and make up some money, as well as a few missions to Minmus, Moon, then Minmus, another one to the Moon. I think I have one more now for Planet Flag on Minmus. I just kept getting those, and I'm like, all right, those are easy. I got chips to do that with. Oh, this one's kind of a funny looking one. That long, skinny fairing up front. That's for the D-Magic mission, which requires a couple of pieces on it that are huge, and there's no compressed version of them. They're just super long and awkward. That's the one that'll double later on as the ScanSat, but initially it has some giant pieces on the front, and then we can detach those with a separator later. Those are the 3 satellites. You just saw me, or those other 2, and then this one. Those are the satellites for there, and of course the one that I launched in the what's called the channel update video. That was the other one. I think that was the ScanSat Ike. So I was grinding away for a long time. I went from about 1.8 million Kerbal bucks, space bucks, to up to, I think I'm at 3.5, or I was up to about 3.5 million space bucks, Kerbal bucks. But between these 4 satellites, the Ike lander, which is up there, well, you'll see that. I'm going to build that next, actually. That's unmanned, just up there, and it's going to get to Duna, It's going to get to Duna unmanned, and then it will dock it and transfer people across. There you go. You can see the giant, the signal antenna and the recon antenna. It's like the spy satellite pieces, but they're just huge. And those are the smaller ones. There's a bigger one, too. We'll see another shot of that satellite in a bit. Here we are building the Ike lander. Just the Mark II lander can, probe core for control, power, science, all the bits and bobs coming together. Fairly typical build for a lander, I think. Anyway, we had a lot of money. We had 3.5 billion, and now you can see in the bottom corner there, 3.5 million. But now down there you can see 1,481,000, looks like 314 space bucks, Kerbal bucks. And then after launching this one, which I think cost around 120 some odd, we were still at 1.2 million, which I thought all these missions to Duna would bankrupt us. And I'm pretty sure getting to Duna and doing all that stuff will get us a healthy return, largely from the missions, but also for world's firsts. I mean, we're not landing on Duna. We're not doing that stuff. And I remember on my last playthrough when I landed on Duna and did all that stuff, I came back, once those were all done, I went from whatever to 10 million space bucks, Kerbal bucks. So I'm hoping these will be, they should on their own be profitable because most of the ships cost a little more than the advance we got for their construction, but we're still going to get at least 100K back for each mission, each satellite, or more. So hopefully that'll work out. Plus, some of them also have completion for the final bit of the mission. Others have it for for all the little bits and bobs, the inner in between bits. When you complete this bit, you get 49,000. Complete that bit, 27,000. So hopefully this should all be fairly profitable, and then we can really spend some money on the mission to Eve. And right now, the way orbital alignments are going, we are about a year away from launching to Duna, and currently a year and like 3 months from launching to Eve. So we're just going to do Duna right now. We're not going to get to Eve right now, but once Duna is done, then all the efforts for Eve, if we have to jump out, I think I probably will jump out to the experiments save and do some missions in there, and probably post those on YouTube as well, to try to experiment just a bit more with landing techniques. Like I was trying stuff with fairings and with the giant inflatable, what's it called? The giant inflatable heat shield. But oh my gosh, the inflatable heat shield, I think it protects you, the heat and whatnot, but it has so much drag, and the atmosphere for Duna or for Eve gets so thick so quickly that it just drags and makes it really unstable, and it drags unevenly, whatever it is. It would cause things every time, no matter what I did, that's the correct emphasis, it flipped over. Although I've seen some other missions on YouTube where people put a 10, and I hadn't tried this yet. I put the 10 meter heat shield on the bottom and then other heat shields on the top to act as like brakes, and it still flipped over. I saw somebody else did the 10 meter heat shield on the top and bottom, and that seems to counterbalance itself and work out all right. So that might be the thing to try next in an experiments for Eve. But I honestly, landing, I actually did do it once with a space plane, although I lost one engine with it. But I got a space plane down. Whether I can get that space plane back up again, that's the question. I don't think I'll have enough, enough Delta V to really launch that and fly it through the atmosphere and get it into orbit. I think it would crap out at like 40,000 or 40 kilometers or so. So that's where it is for Eve. We're going to try to get there, but not yet. Like I said, Duna first, because that's where I think I can get some money, and that's where I've got a decent number of contracts for. This is the last one that's coming up into orbit. This is, like I said, the Ike lander, and we'll get a look at that in just a moment. There goes that. Yeah, and all these guys, they've all got, big 2.5 meter stages behind them because, hey, there's fuel left there. Why waste it? And we'll use those for the transfer stages, transition stages, all those things. There it is. Yeah, you saw me build this, so this is no surprise. Those antennas are just kind of funny looking, though. And solar panels. And now we're dropping into real time. And here we have, of course, we saw me build this, the Ike lander with her stages and whatnot. I think it's going to be a cool little ship. Next is the Winter Owl Sat. Just one of the missions I have, and that's the company, so I'm naming them by the company like I usually do. The Winter Owl, and you'll see similarities between a lot of these because they all have real simple missions. Next is the Kerbal Motion Sat. Like I said, they all have a pretty similar mission profile in terms of what I need to do. I need to get them to Duna into an orbit. So I got plenty of Delta V, and then I just kind of switch out the science parts as needed. And next coming up, we have the ScanSat Ike. This is the one you saw me launch if you watched the channel update. Again, well, this one's got more to it, more science on it. It's got all the science that I can from space to maximize that at Ike. And then lastly, we're going to have the ScanSat Duna / D-Magic. It's got the, I can't even read that right now, but it's got the antenna, the SIGINT thing, and then the recon thing. So those are both big pieces on the front because I need those for the mission. So like I said, we'll get into orbit. Those are needed at a low orbit, so we'll make it, an eccentric orbit where you go low to high, do all the things I need to do in a low orbit, ditch those pieces, and then blast up to a high orbit and start the ScanSat, a low polar orbit. Next coming up, though, is the big one, the ship that's going to carry everybody to Duna, all the Kerbals. There she is. Kind of hard to tell what's what right now because there's so many booster rockets on the bottom. But this is probably the biggest thing I've ever launched inside Kerbal Space Program. It's beefy, it's big, and you can see it. This is at 4 times acceleration. It's slowly thrusting up. But I wanted something that was big. And, oh, by the way, this is the Andromeda. I mean, we have the Arcadia, What's the other station's name? I'm going to have to look it up now. Wow. The Arcadia, whatever's at the moon. And this is the Andromeda. And, oh, right. I had to revert. I guess I did something. I forgot to... Yeah, I don't want to send this up manned right now. I really, really don't. Oh, is that what I did? No, I must have to do something else. Oh, I changed the root part, I think. Because this is so tall, I had to switch the root part around, up and down, so that I actually had access to all of it to build all the pieces. It's a good trick for building something really big, but it wasn't... I don't know. Anyway, this is the Andromeda, and like I said, I think the single largest thing I've ever launched. Obviously, the Space Station Arcadia is larger when it's completed, but this guy's pretty huge. And initially, it was running pretty slow because there's a decently high part count, although a lot of them are just big parts. But you can see that top half there, where it looks like it goes out on spokes. It goes out on the metal struts. Those are some fuel tanks with some poodles on the bottom, but they're the longest of the Mark III cargo bays, payload bays. There we go, payload bays. And that's where we are carrying the probes that are going to the lander probes that are going to land on Duna in hopefully 4 different biomes and collect the science. But with the Andromeda, I wanted to build something that once I launch it, it'll have lots of fuel, lots of Delta V, lots of capabilities for getting around. It'll be a multi-purpose vessel, and I had initially wanted it to where I could dock inside those cargo bays, dock 4 lander probes so that I could land, here or Eve or wherever we go. And then also inside those cargo bays, I was hoping to put a small lander, like just a 1-person non-atmospheric lander can for landing on Ike. Unfortunately, the probe landers, I probably could have miniaturized things more, but I like using the D-Magic, what's it called? The D-Magic universal storage parts. It's just clean to have them all in those little compartments. So I say with the 1.25 meter size, and to get the heat shield and the motors and all the things I need to make it work, they take up the whole cargo. All 4 of them take up each one of those cargo bays. So I don't have space for a lander. That's why we built the Ike lander separate, and it'll rendezvous and do its thing there once we are at Duna. But again, this is the type of thing I've saved that the probes that are on here in a subassembly. I learned a trick about that too, which we can get into another time. Well, just make sure if the root part is the probe core, it doesn't want to save. If the root part is something else, like I made the root part the engine, because that's how I got it to dock inside the ship too, you can save it. Interesting. Anyway, I got those saved as subassemblies, so I can always build those, stick them in something else, launch them up, and restock the Andromeda for another trip somewhere else. I wanted something that was kind of cool looking like this, with spokes and outriggers looking like that. It's not quite the size and scale that I was thinking of. I don't know what I was thinking of. I had a vague idea of what I wanted it to look like, but it's there, and it's gonna. I think once I ditch all the stages behind it, it's gonna look pretty darn cool. I do think so. Just looking at it right now, it looks like like a claw ship. It's a Star Wars thing. It's in the legends. It's in the books. It doesn't matter anymore. But it kind of reminds me of what I imagine those claw ships would look like. So yeah, that's the goal for the next few episodes. Probably the next 4 to 6 episodes after this. This one's a bit of a, hey, we're back in action again, like the title says. But this is the setup. But this was all the prep work. This was over about 4 hours of recording, maybe 3 hours of recording. But a lot of experimentation with stuff too. But that's what's going to happen. We're going to get to Duna with the Duna Armada, etc., etc. So next episode, we will jump in with another shuttle launch, just like the beginning of this one, to get all of our Kerbins up into space and on board the Andromeda. Once it's, the window is approaching, we'll probably start about, I like to be about 20 days ahead of the what's it called? The Kerbal alarm clock window, because that's never quite correct. And honestly, I could go into the game now and tell it, hey, what's the window? It'll be different than what it's saying right now by a few days, probably. It's whether it's updates or just the way the game goes, it gets a little screwy sometimes. But we'll launch them up into space, and we'll have plenty of time for all that to happen. And we can also use. I'm trying not to use the crutch that is MechJeb, especially since it's still kind of a developer build. It's not the fully released one. But we could use MechJeb to just create an encounter, to create the departure and whatnot. And that's something I might do, honestly, just for the timing of it. Not necessarily even to use that maneuver, but to use it for timing. All right, so we got this guy nearly in orbit. It's almost circularized. We're going to actually jump back into real time here in just a moment, and I think the sound's going to come back from the game. Yeah, just a little bit of thrusting. And now that it's in real time, you can see, if you look at the contrails, the flames off that back there, you can see them just not coming out quite as quick as they could. Like I said, it's a little bit part heavy. It's a little beefy. There you can kind of see the outriggers. I turned the poodles on just to give us that little bit of extra, because the quad bore, the giant one down there, great at lifting, great for thrust to weight, not that great at stuff in space. It hogs the fuel, and yet it's not really all that great. But we're almost to. We're about to complete this maneuver. There I was just checking the fuel, because I end up off camera pumping the fuel forward into those outrigger pods there. Anyway, that's the goal. Going to Duna. Thanks for watching. Thanks for hanging out. If you like, hit subscribe. Tell your friends, tell your neighbors, pass the word. I will catch you later.